Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is I. Yes, it's me, BRENNON, here again with another edition of the Ray Review. I'm looking at these teams in retroactive yellow. I'm looking at the owners and I'm looking at the rosters, and I'm just trying to figure out which teams have the best chance of winning it all and which teams more than likely are going to end up in the basement. And I wanted to give y'all my review of the rosters post draft, pre kickoff. So forgive me for the timing. Got other things going on, but I am committed to looking at and reviewing different matchups, games, roster moves, etc. throughout the course of the season, just to add a little pizzazz, a little flair to the season. Um, all right, so just for people's awareness, you can see my name right here. That is not my team. I am the commissioner, but I am not participating in retroactive yellow this year. I left that spot open for a different owner, and it just so happens that owner who filled that spot is Steve. I forget his last name. He's a league safe ad, which, to be honest, has been a 50-50 thing the past few years, past 2 years. Some owners coming out of league safe have been quality owners by our definition here at Retroactive, and some owners, which it looks like Steve is starting off being, have no idea what the hell they're doing and or they don't care. And I say that just by looking at the defense here. I named Steve's team because he was going to leave my team name from last year as his team name, and that's a no-go. I don't want anything to do with an owner who doesn't show himself to be a quality owner. But he has a chance to prove himself still if he does engage in the chat and make moves with his roster. But this defense, if you can see here, there's going to be some trades that are necessary. These are his starting linebackers: Nick Martin, Isaiah McDuffie, D. Winters. Um, that is not a winning linebacking core. Nobody has a projection over 10 points in his starting linebacking core. His highest projected player on his defense is 11.1 points from Ronaldo Green. So that's going to be a liability for him. The bench, he has Malachi Starks on the bench. Again, not really sure about the decision making here, where you got Rashawn Gary and Jalen Carter in your starting lineup, and kickoff is tonight. Something tells me that Jalen Carter is not going to be moved before kickoff, and instead is going to take that spot away from Malachi Starks. I'm open to being wrong, but again, these are the kind of owners that you have the possibility of getting when you open invitations up to league safe. So other than that, Nick Chubb starting running back, Travion Henderson starting running back. I've got a funny feeling that Steve is on his way to the worst record in retroactive yellow this year, although he does have a very solid receiving core in McConkey, Neighbors, Myers, and Sutton. So we'll see how that turns out. Take a look at some of the other rosters here. Falcoholics, welcome back. Year 2 for you. I believe you're a league safe ad as well. He's proven to be a pretty solid owner, somewhat communicative, but he could be more than he was last year. We'll see how that transpires. Offense, solid through and through. Everybody projected for over 12 points a game or 11 points per game. Tony Pollard is a flex back, is good. Got 2 Browns on the roster, neither here nor there. Stacked between Penix and Drake London, solid. Hunter Henry definitely could be utilized more with Drake May going into year 2, and a new head coach, new new and old offensive coordinator, and Josh McDaniels, who did like tight ends during his time in New England previously with Belichick. So that could be a sneaky good additional source of points from the tight end position. Best linebacker in fantasy last year. Add that to the linebacking core. Tyrell Dodson, Caden Ellis to round out a very solid tight end linebacking core. Defensive line is solid as well. Hutchinson and Van Ginkel. DBs, y'all know how I feel about DBs. If you don't, ask me in the chat. But everybody that he does have 12 plus points as a projection. So this is a really, really good roster. I don't know what the total score is that he's projected to have, but it looks like he definitely learned from last season and got better. The bench is a little light. Not a lot of support on the bench, so it's not a lot of room for error as far as injury or poor performance in the starting lineup. But a solid starting lineup nonetheless. This looks like a playoff roster for sure. Looks like a playoff roster. Royal Savages, welcome back, Av. It's good to see you, brother. Glad to have you back. Really, really good receiving core with Jefferson and McLaurin. Thielen as a flex, especially coming back to Minnesota. I anticipate they'll be doing a little bit more throwing than last year, especially with Aaron Jones as the starting back. I just got a funny feeling there's going to be a little bit of regression in the offense because of McCarthy starting his first season. And they're going to have to throw a little bit more than they did last year. And I don't think they're going to be able to run on everybody like they did last year either. So that could benefit Jefferson and Thielen in that offense. Kyle Pitts is ish or get off the pot year. We'll see how he does in the Falcons offense. Kamara Montgomery is solid. Jordan Love is solid. Good linebacking core as well. Another playoff roster. Bosa, Buckner, and Garrett at defensive line. Y'all know how I feel about defensive line. I think that's a very big position group in fantasy. If you have a solid boom potential with your D-line, I think it boosts the rest of your roster. And everybody else is good. Linebacking core goes into the defensive flex. I was really big on Minka this fall, going back to Miami. I think this is a playoff roster. Again, very similar to Falcoholics. No depth on the bench, so that could be a challenge. Knock on wood if there's any injury or anything like that. But starting lineup, playoff roster. Welcome to Retroactive Yellow, Gerard Nasir. I didn't know that was your last name. AKA Bleed Green Dynasty. Big Eagles fan. One of the more obnoxious Eagles fans I've ever met. But solid roster. Coming over from the other league. Committed to the offense. I can see at least the starting offensive players. Defense, there's room for improvement on the defense. There's definitely room for improvement. Got some of the better defensive backs in fantasy, who often can make splash plays, sacks, high tackle count, interceptions, which can compensate for what's lacking in the defensive line room or in the linebacker room. I don't bank on defensive backs to do that. I think you have the best kicker in fantasy in Aubrey, at least last season. Tyler Warren definitely could be a sleeper on your bench. He might end up starting sooner than later, especially with your flex guy being Jordan Mason. But yeah, I'm not too sure about this roster going into the offense. I'm not big on RJ Harvey. Bucky Irvin he's really good. I was gonna say great, but he's really good. I'm just not a fan of his running style or the system that he's in. But that has nothing to do with production. Kelsey, we'll see if he rebounds. You got the Mahomes-Kelsey stack. I'm not the biggest on this roster. I'm not the highest on this roster. I think that this could be a fringe playoff roster, but my initial bet is they miss the playoffs, maybe as like the 9th or 10th seed. I spoke on Steve's silly little team. All right. Finding Nico. I believe this is Mexican Steve. So this is the fake Steve. who is like an affiliate of some influencer that he mentioned earlier in the offseason. Kyler Murray, sleeper quarterback in fantasy, always productive with his legs. I think second year back from his injury with Marvin Harrison Jr. in the offseason, it'll give him a chance to get more rapport and improve the offense. But I'm still iffy on the Cardinals offense, so I don't know. I just don't know how that's going to turn out. But I think Kyler Murray still get his numbers. Leggett and Tracy in the flex. Interesting. Kyron, always productive, but very, very touchdown dependent. DeAndre Swift, that offense is going to be another question mark. Colston Loveland, how his utilization will be year one with all those other mouths to feed in Chicago. Two pieces of the Chicago offense gives me pause. Mike Evans, Ageless Wonder, Nico Collins. Offense is solid. The offense is solid. It's more of a question mark than the other offenses I've looked at, but it is solid nonetheless. Two really good starting linebackers, some of the better starting linebackers in fantasy. Defensive line is solid. It's okay. Nwosu is a big question mark, and it's literally a question mark next to his name for like the third straight season. Defensive backs solid. It's a solid roster. I'm looking at it very similarly to Gerard's borderline fringe playoff roster. I wouldn't rule out a playoff run. Something tells me that some other moves would need to be made. Even looking at decisions like this here, where you got a linebacker who retired months ago, and for whatever reason you still added him to your roster, strikes me as just not paying attention to the updates and the news. Addison on reserve for whenever he comes off the suspension, and Goddard on the bench. Those are two good bench players to have, along with Algier as a handcuff and Bateman. So this is a few moves, and this could be a playoff roster, but I'm going to say probably like 11-12 right now as a finish, missing the playoffs. Glock Purdy, one of the better fantasy names I've seen in a while. Very, very, very interesting and creative fantasy name. Going with the Josh Allen Saquon stack, this is what led me to the Rap Championship Finals last season on the backs of Allen and Barkley. So I'm a big fan of that combination right there. Calvin Ridley I also drafted in Rap last season, but I traded him away. Kind of regretted it towards the end of the year. We'll see if he can continue the streak and the good play from the end of last season into this season. DK in Pittsburgh, two, to me, in my personal opinion, question marks between those two starting receivers. Andrews, is he on the back half of his career after that major injury last year? Is he going to have the same utilization with D-Hop there? Ibuka should get a lot of targets out the gate. How McMillan's out, but how Godwin eats into that target share when he comes back will be interesting to see. Same thing for Pearsall when Ayuk comes back. But getting out the gate, this is a solid offense to get out the gate with. Chuba Hubbard over there as the number 2 running back. Really, really good linebacking core. Greenlaw already being hurt again is a little unsettling, particularly with a lower leg injury after he's coming off of a wrecked knee from 2 Super Bowls ago. So I'm not too high on Greenlaw because of that, the injury probabilities, especially if you have one leg injury and then you get another leg injury in a different area. So possibility of like overcompensation and potential for danger. So not wishing that on him, but not sure. Defensive line, Granderson has been a solid NFL starter, but not fantasy starter. Jalen Phillips, another injury question mark. I'm really, really big on Leonard Williams. So it's okay. I would say it's average to below average D-line. And defensive backs solid. I'm not too big as a Raiders fan. I'm not too big on Jeremy Chin in terms of consistent output. I think he gets splash plays, but being in his third defense in 3 seasons, and the uncertainty of the Raiders defense overall, I was nervous about him. I am nervous about him in real life and in fantasy. So we'll see if that translates to fantasy points. But decent defensive backfield. I would say that this is another one of those fringe playoff teams, maybe 10 or 11. Could make a run. The bench, yeah, you know, not really big on the bench either. Ray McCloud might have to get used more if Mooney has further complications, but other than that, I'm not really seeing anything threatening over here outside of these two. Now, with that being said, because of my roster not being the best throughout RAP last season, these two made up for a lot of holes and a lot of difficulties. So if Barkley has one of those 150-yard game, 2 touchdown games with a 50-yard run and a 70-yard run, that could account for a whole lot of gaps. So I would say maybe like a 10 or 11th place finish if some other moves are made, if Greenlaw stays healthy, if a lot of ifs take place, if the defensive backs produce the way they're projected to, this could be a playoff team. I don't have that much confidence in the offense throughout the course of the season. I think there's going to be some moves that have to be made. Kava Cool Cats. Black Robert Taylor, legacy owner and retroactive. It's not much that needs to be said about his drafting, his roster. He's generally very good at not needing to trade, not needing to hit the wire too significantly, because he knows how to find players who fit the overall structure of the team and get him to produce wins to get him to a playoffs. For that reason, I automatically put him in the playoffs in Ray. No offense to anybody. He's been in RAP for years. He's been to a RAP championship final. He is a quality owner. Linebacking core is there. Offense is there. I might start Ramondre over Jaylen Warren. I know the projections have Jaylen Warren 3 points more per game, but I think Stevenson will get more run, and I don't see Warren being a bell cow back or really a big play back. I think he's a scat back, get you utilization out of the backfield, receiving, and on occasionally a big run. But I think Stevenson's going to get the touches that have him to be a starting running back. But either way, both of them should be in the lineup, so it doesn't matter. I'm on Ryan Waddle, both big play threats. St. Brown gets a lot of targets and touches. So, man, solid offense, defense, really good. Big on defensive tackles. Defensive backs, really, really good. So I would say this is a playoff roster. Where he's seated in the playoffs, I don't know. Got solid depth on the bench. Not too sure about the receiver depth, but not really necessary with the 3 starting receivers that he has. Playoff roster. Easy. Same thing for Miss Truesdale here, the True Assassins. Coming off of a RAP championship 2 seasons ago. Another lock for me as a playoff team in Ray, just because of her history. Very similar to Black Rob with drafting high floor, high ceiling players, or high floor, moderate ceiling players. Either way, they're going to produce enough for her to have a playoff team. T. Higgins and CeeDee Lamb, great starting receivers. Josh Downs has a chance to thrive in the Colts offense since Daniel Jones is starting. James Conner, Aaron Jones, solid starting running backs. C.J. Stroud should have a bounce back year in year 3. Adunze is a wild card for the Bears. Again, crowded Chicago offense, but her intel suggests that he will be the focal point of that offense. Solid linebacking core, probably the best linebacking core in Ray, between Lou, Sherwood, and Logan. Solid D-line, area that she's willing to sacrifice more on and try to find later or throughout the course of the season. And defensive backs, leaving a little room for improvement, but linebacking core makes up for it with Cody Barton in the defensive flex. So yeah, playoff roster. I think Jalen Higgins gets more involved in the offense as the year goes on. Same with Theo Johnson. I think he's a sleeper at tight end. Defensive backs, yeah, y'all know how I feel about them. So playoff roster. So that's 3 playoff teams between the 3. I think I said Av was borderline. Did I say Av was borderline? I don't remember. I have to go back and watch it. Y'all tell me. I think Av was like playoff or borderline. I can't remember. But yeah, so that's the Furnace division and the Morning Sun division. We're gonna go to the Sahara, get a little sweat going. Awful team name from William Brisbois. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. I thought this was like a stand-in team name until you thought of something later. But yeah, that's terrible. Roster, not terrible, but a lot of potential picks on the offense. Hockenson could get more run with Addison being out, or he could have the same utilization he's had in recent seasons, where he's basically a tight end 2/3. Occasional double-digit game, not too high on him. Pickens could be great in Dallas. Worthy could be great in Kansas City. Not too high on him as the number 1 receiver. Coleman could be great in Buffalo. Already hurt, and honestly, from what I saw on tape last year, I don't really know if there's that much higher of a ceiling for him. Scatterboo is not a starting running back in the NFL, and he should not be a starting running back in fantasy. I'll just leave that alone. Marvin Mims is a solid flex, but behind who he's behind, just not really sure. William made sure to get linebackers, which is smart. So he's got a solid linebacking core. Defensive line, not good. Not a good defensive line. Derek Brown coming off an injury, leading the defensive line. Jonathan Cooper, he got his money in real life, but consistency week to week. I mean, if you're only asking him to get 6-7 points, maybe 10, 8 or 9 points a week, then he'll do that job. I just think that'll be a liability for this roster, particularly with that offense. Defensive backs, solid. Really, really good defensive backfield. But yeah, I don't have this as a playoff team. Joe Mixon coming back definitely could be a benefit to the running back core, bumping Scatterboo down. Rashee Rice coming back, definitely be a boost to the receiving core. So he will have to stay afloat until mid or late October in order to get the most benefit of this roster. And something's telling me he's not going to stay afloat, because as Thursday kickoff approaches, he has 2 players, one player that's IR eligible, who is still on the bench, and he hasn't replaced that player with somebody else he could use today. So probably not going to be a quality owner, unfortunately. Y'all see what I see, so I'm just going to call it how I see it, for those who've been in the league. Moving on to M6, Marcos, back for year 4, year 5. He's been a staple in Ray the past couple of years. Appreciate your participation. Really good offense here. Again, 2 potential picks here in Harrison Jr. and Sampson. I was not high on Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out of the draft, as other analysts and scouts were, just from what I saw on tape. Last year was a lot of that. Not doesn't really have shiftiness or quickness. He's a little stiff, particularly have that last name. Plays nothing like his father. He's significantly bigger, but I just didn't see enough separation or potential to get open and really be the dominant guy that they drafted him to be. So I'm not high on him. I think McBride is going to continue getting the targets there in Arizona. Dylan Sampson is not starting in Cleveland, nor is he going to be the second running back in Cleveland. So that's a questionable slot right there. But Herbert and Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown can keep the offense afloat with Trey McBride. I think all four of them can help keep the offense afloat. Those are four solid offensive players to keep the offense alive. I love Michael Pittman Jr. at the flex as the third receiver. So if Harrison Jr. pans out and you find someone else to go in that running back slot, that would be a really, really good offense for your fantasy squad. Good linebacking core in Queen, Warner, and Henley. Probably one of the better ones in Ray. I think DJ Wonnum can be highly productive if Carolina manages to get some games with 2-score leads in the second half. And he can just pin his ears back and rush. I don't know how much he'll contribute just by tackle amounts in the run game. He had some solid games last year, but all of his double-digit games came as a result of getting at least one sack. So defensive line, Kwity Paye, I gave up on him. He's had enough time. You got both exciting whites in your defensive backfield. So kudos to that. Two good safeties as well. Deshaun Elliott, Talanoa Hufanga. I've never said his first name before. So yeah, probably gonna miss the playoffs. Well, I can't say that fast. Linebackers, defensive backs, I can't say that. Defensive line needs some help. You probably need one more piece for the one more piece for the offense, whether some flex piece, whether it's receiver or running back. But I think this could be a playoff roster. I would say 9 or 10 is where I think it will finish. But he could get into like the 7 or 8 range as a wild card. I don't see like division champion. I should have mentioned that with the other owners who I say will make the playoffs, whether they'll win a division or not. But I think you could sneak in. I'm not exactly sure. I have to look at the final picture. The bench, a lot of handcuffs, a lot of if injury happens kind of players. So very similar to a few other rosters. It has to be the starting lineup getting the job done. Ryan Franklin, welcome back. What I could recall and watching the Ray draft, you had a really good draft, but very similar to one of the previous owners I spoke to. Just in a casual scroll here, you have a player in your starting lineup with a game starting in about 4 hours, less than 4 hours. You got a player in your starting lineup who is on IR, and you don't have him in your IR slot. So that gives me concern about your involvement and your participation as an active quality owner, which was the reason I had hesitation of bringing you back, to be honest. But nevertheless, as far as the players you actually brought in, looks like a quality offense here. Another piece of that Chicago offense, but he was the target leader last year, so it makes sense to have him in your starting lineup next to Tyreek. I'm not too concerned about Tyreek's injury. Hurts, one of the better fantasy quarterbacks. Gibbs and Pacheco, solid running back tandem in fantasy. Njoku in the tight end spot. Godwin should also be in the IR. I'm not sure how they even list him as doubtful. I know they didn't put him on the IR, but they should have. He's not going to be back to at least late September, if not early October. So these two guys shouldn't be in a lineup, but when they are, it makes the roster even better. Not certain about Kenneth Murray as a starting linebacker in real life or in fantasy. Matter of fact, I think he got. I think he's not starting. I think Maris Leofile is starting, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken. Bobby Wagner, solid though. Defensive line, you got T.J. Watt, so that's a check for the defensive line. I ain't got to say nothing else. Sweat and Verse. Verse is a sleeper to go next to Watt. So that's actually a really good defensive line. And good defensive backs. Jalen Ramsey is a sleeper as well, going back to Miami, or going to Pittsburgh, excuse me. And the way he can be used in that defense is a Swiss Army knife. One of the better corners in the league in Stingley, and one of the better fantasy safeties in McKinney. So I think, and you got Isaiah Polamalu. Okay. Yeah, I really like this roster. This is a playoff roster. G.I. Campbell's on the bench. You're going to end up starting him over Nakobe Dean if you get that right. Mooney. You got a lot of guys I would get, or I actually have gotten in other drafts. Trey Harris, Darren Waller. So you drafted very similar to how I draft. Think how I think. And for that, I say you're gonna have a playoff roster. But are you gonna actually manage your roster? That's going to determine whether you have a playoff roster or not, or are you going to leave people who are on the IR in your starting lineup. The biggest spiteful owner I've ever experienced, Des Burton with the @everyone team name, because of my frustration with his compatriot, his fellow Eagles fan, using @everyone unnecessarily in the chat. Solid roster. You got Matthew Golden as your number one receiver. That is a question mark to me, only because of the lack of clarity in the Green Bay receiver room. I understand the investment of him as a first round pick, necessitating his targets be reflective of that, but it's speculative. It could go. We don't know. So you're banking on him. We don't know, which is why I say it's a question mark. Devontae Smith, solid number 2 receiver. Brock Bowers kind of makes up for those question marks with the starting receiving core, and Olave in the flex, Debo in the flex, McCaffrey coming off a knee injury, Nix, Hampton. I think that's a solid offense. Solid defense as well, from what I can see in the defensive, the linebacking core. If Tyrese Knight gets as much run as we anticipate that he will, next to Ernest Jones. Not really big on the defensive line. Dexter Lawrence is good in real life. Fantasy, I'm not really sure. Fantasy is be hit or miss. But in real life, he's one of the better defensive tackles in the league, if not the best. But the rest of the D-line, I'm out on. So that's the liability. But every other position group you got is solid. I'm not liking EJ Speed in the defensive flex. Kenny Moore, he's on the back nine of his career, but he's been a consistent fantasy producer, one of the better slot corners in the league. So this looks like a playoff team. I think it's a wild card team. I definitely think that it could compete for a division championship, but I don't have the confidence that it'll win a fantasy championship unless some moves are made throughout the course of the year. As it currently stands, it's a wild card roster. All right, and into the kingdom. Rub my cleat. If fantasy team names could get any worse, I don't know, but appreciate you, Quentin, for participating as always. Welcome to Yellow. Welcome back to Yellow, I should say. Really good draft from what I can remember. Surprisingly good draft, if I'm being honest. Good value picks on the offense. Very similar to what I was saying about Dez. Not liking the number 1 receiver, but if it's the if game. If these guys pan out and they continue their trajectory from previous seasons when they're healthy and on the field, Kupp, Allen, and Zay Flowers could be a really quality receiving trio. Brian Robinson Jr. needs to go on the bench because he's only a handcuff in San Francisco. Um, but the offense is okay. I don't think the ceiling is very high for the offense, but it can be a solid, consistent producing offense, again, barring injury. Because you got injury concerned players all throughout the offense. Kenneth Walker III, Zay, Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen. So just knock on wood, they all stay healthy. Really, really, really good linebacking core. Singleton, David, and Jordan Brooks. Of course, everybody wants to call me and text me now. Decent defensive line. I think Brian Burns and the rest of the D line in New York are going to have a underrated season, really good season. Anthony Jennings, Calvin Noy. I think it's okay. It's an okay defensive line. I think they can get the job done for the rest of the composition of your roster. And good defensive backs. Alontae Taylor, Cam Taylor-Britt, Julian Love, Kevin Byard. This looks like a wild card team, if I'm being honest. And while he never really got the credit that he deserved in rap in the years that he wasn't getting relegated, Quentin always had a playoff contending roster year after year. So I believe this is no different. The bench leaves room for improvement. I'm not sure how Tua is going to be used in Houston with Azeez Al-Shaair and EJ Speed and whoever else is over there. But he could be an intriguing fifth linebacker on your roster. Quinn Johnston is a question mark. Like, is he going to turn into a quality 2? Is he going to flame out of the league? It could go either direction, either extreme. But your starters, I think, are good enough to get you to a wild card spot. Harrison Decker, the reigning, defending, retroactive yellow champion from 2024. He's out for a repeat. And the roster looks like that. He won the Travis Hunter sweepstakes. So if he so chose, he could throw him into the defensive back position and benefit from that utilization, especially since he's going to be starting at receiver to start the year. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase stack, enough said. James Cook, Stephon Diggs, Tucker Kraft, Jacoby Krosky Merritt is an intriguing player. He got a lot of hype in the preseason from his performances. I'm not too aware of what he was doing, so I don't want to speak ill of him. But as a number 2 running back, a boom or bust potential. We'll see in that Washington offense, year 2 of the Kingsbury, Jaden Daniels relationship. Now the whole league has film on everything. We'll just see how they do. And they're going to play a much tougher schedule than they played last year. 11 of their 12 wins came against teams that didn't make the playoffs. So we'll see how they do. What's his name? Jameson Williams as the number 2 receiver. Stephon Diggs in the flex. I think the offense is solid. Really, really big on Edgerrin Cooper. I think he has a chance to make a defensive player of the year candidacy case. That's how big I am on him. Jermaine Pratt, I don't know what the Raiders are going to do with the linebacking core throughout the course of the year. We know how good Jermaine Pratt has been in real life and in fantasy, but with his time in Vegas, I'm not absolutely sure. And then TJ Edwards. So you got a really good linebacking core, good defensive line with Karlaftis, Rousseau, Nolan Smith, all teams that expect to be playing with leads throughout the course of the year and get pass rush opportunities, which leads to higher scores. So a good defensive line strategy. And some of the better defensive backs in fantasy. Cam Bynum, Cameron Curl, Brandon Jones. Really big on Demetrius Knight at linebacker as well. Pete Werner. So you got 5 really good starting linebackers. And one of the biggest legs in fantasy and at kicker, and Cam Little. Playoff roster. I think he wins the division, and he definitely contends for a repeat of his championship run last year. Trey Benson should get a lot of run towards the end of the year. Just something tells me that James Conner's not going to hold up all season. We said that last year, but the pattern has not been him playing a full 16, 17 game season. Last year seems more like an anomaly than a trend. So that's a good player to have on the bench. Kyler Gordon as a really, really good backup flex player and corner. Yep, this is a division winning roster to me, and I give him that credit. Even though you stole 4 of my players and Fish, but Dylan Young, Belichick Film School. I really like the team name. Draft, I think it was okay. I might actually have to change that because I'm really big on Bradley Chubb coming off of his injury. And I think he'll have, very similar to what I was saying about Harrison's D-line, a lot of pass rushing opportunities, even though I don't anticipate Miami playing with a lot of big leads. I think they'll play enough games where it'll either be close and the team is the opposing team is driving to win the game or to tie the game, that Chubb will have a chance to flash why he got the deal he got coming out of Denver. That going with Trey Hendrickson, who got his deal, Michael Parsons, who got his deal in Green Bay. Much better pass rushing scenario for him than in Dallas. That is the best D-line, I think, in Ray. Not one of the best. I think that's the best D-line in Ray. For that reason. So I take back what I said. This is a really good draft. Really good defensive draft. Not familiar with Dylan Young. I believe he's a league safe ad as well. Looks like he has some familiarity with IDP for sure. Nick Bolton, Demario Davis, 2 players I own in other leagues. Landon Roberts. Really good linebacking core. Brian Branch, Dax Hill, Derwin James. Yeah, this is a playoff roster. This roster with Christian Kirk on the bench, he has value of Dante Thornton. So someone who thinks like me, he got Ayuk in the IR like I do. To me, this is a playoff roster. The starters alone look like it could be competitive for a division championship. The balance of the roster, offense and defense. I do think that the running backs are both speculative, even though I own Travis Etienne in 2 leagues. I do think it's speculative. Chase Brown coming off of one big year or one big half of a year last year, and now he's he has high expectations. Etienne had a really bad last 2 seasons, and he's kind of holding on to his starting spot by a thread. Nevertheless, Garrett Wilson playing with his old college quarterback, but still Justin Fields, what he's been in the league, which hasn't been very efficient, very good. I think this is still a productive enough offense to go with I'm struggling not to say great, but this is really a great defense, a great fantasy defense, that this should be a playoff roster and contend for a division championship. And finally, playing to the max, Nathan Arnold, first year in retro. I've played with him in another league. Really good quality owner. Made a championship run in that league. And I anticipate him doing the same here. And it looks like that's what he's doing. Josh Jacobs, A-Chan, Trevor Lawrence, boom or bust in terms of this season. Like, he's got to make it work, or they might be trying to replace him next year. Good starting receivers in T-Mac and DA. Jake Ferguson looks for a bounce back year, even though he's going to have to wrestle with Pickens for targets. J.K. Dobbins, how long he holds on that starting spot in Denver remains to be seen. Jawan Jennings, is he hurt? Is he or is he ain't? Okay, he got some incentive, so he must be okay. They must have confidence in him. Good flex receiver to have. Really, really good. One of the better linebacking cores, if not the best linebacking core in Ray. Cashman, Okereke, and Oluokun. That's probably the best linebacking core in Ray. I like the defensive line. Kobe Turner is one of the better D tackles in fantasy. Harold Landry, I think he'll have way better opportunities in New England than he ever did in Tennessee. Or not ever, but has in recent years in Tennessee. Um, yeah, I like the defense. I like the defense. Similar thing. Um, Contending for the division. It's going to be a really tough division. This division is going to be really tough. The Kingdom is going to be a tough division. That's going to be a tough division because everybody, they might get 3 or 4 teams into the playoffs. They might get 3 teams. I anticipate they get 3 teams. They might get all 4 teams in the playoffs, depending on how Quentin does. If I'm being honest, but I like the roster. So all that said, just looking at the bench here, Kobe Bryant, Devin Lloyd. I think it's a decent bench. Slayton could get more targets from better quarterback play and Russell Wilson or Jackson Dart, whoever ends up taking over. Michael Wilson, I've been high on him, but again, that Cardinals offense is just a big question mark. So I think this is a solid roster, playoff roster. Let me see, man. I think that going back through here, I think I would pick. I didn't think I picked him. Looking at that offense, I think that was a question mark. I can't remember who I picked out of this division. Av has probably the best team in this division. I would pick Av out of this division. The defensive backfield is crazy. Linebacking core is the determining factor. So I think Av wins the Morning Sun. Falcoholics and Nazir both compete for a playoff wild cards. Steve might finish last in the league. Black Rob and Janine, I know those two will battle for the division. I might be giving the edge to Black Rob. I think I'm giving the edge to Black Rob just by looking at the defense of Janine. Yeah, that linebacking core and that defensive backfield is the edge to me for Black Rob to win the Furnace division. I definitely think Janine makes the playoffs, so that would be 1, 2, 3 playoff teams at least, potentially 4 or 5. But I'm a lot higher on the Kingdom. We'll get there in a second. Nico, yeah, it's just the offense could be huge, or it could be. I just think there would be a lot of down weeks for the offense. A lot of good weeks, but a lot of down weeks. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Black Rob winning the division for the Furnace, and Janine getting in as a wild card. Av winning the division for the Morning Sun. And then the Sahara. I just don't have confidence in Ryan. I know everybody got a lot of stuff going on in their personal life, so I don't want to use that as an excuse. I just don't see him paying attention. I don't see him really tending to his roster in the way that he needs to where he could win a division. I think he has the potential to win a division, but the attention to detail, I don't think he's going to have. And because of that, I look between Dez and Marcos here. I might give the edge to Dez. I like the defensive backs for Marcos. Offense, I like the offense. Again, I think 1 move or 2 moves for the offense and to be solid. Yeah, I'm not going to give it to IDK. It's the same thing for this offense. It's like it could be good, but it's just I would say this might be the weakest division in Ray, the Sahara division. despite all the big names, I think management is going to be a big deal. If Ryan manages his roster the way that he should, and does trades and pays attention to the wire and sets his lineup correctly, I think Ryan Franklin wins the division. I don't have confidence in that happening, so I'm going to give the division to Dez. Marcos could compete for a wild card. Ryan could compete for the division or a wild card, but I'm going to predict that Dez wins the division. And then I think all the rest of these owners get in the playoffs. I would say Harrison wins the division. Harrison for the Kingdom. 1, 2, 3 playoff teams. 4 playoff teams. 5 playoff teams. 6 playoff teams. 7 playoff teams. So 5. Oh, no. Everybody in this division wins. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Dez wins 5. Black Rob wins 6. Janine gets in 7. And then Av gets in 8. That's my predictions going into the 2025 season for Retroactive Yellow. Please feel free to like, comment, and share. Subscribe. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. And let's get this season cracking. I'll let y'all later. Peace.